guys, and welcome back to my channel. For my first video in my Instagram series, I've had a lot of requests to show you guys how I edit my pictures, and this is something that took me a long time to learn. I will actually link below some of the videos that I watched that helped me learn how to edit my photos, so if you just want to check those out down below, all of them will be down there. Knowing how to edit your photos can not only make you look a lot more professional as an artist and a creator on Instagram, no matter what you're trying to edit the photos for, it also can just give a really cohesive HD look to your photos and make your whole feed on Instagram look a lot more professional to anyone who's coming to view it. I know from my personal experiences of working with brands that they tend to look for influencers who know how to edit their photos professionally because it's less work that the brand has to do. So if you're able to edit your photos in a professional manner, you have a better chance of working with brands and overall just expanding your social media channels and growing more if that's what you're interested in. I like to personally look at photos that are pretty HD in quality, and you can tell that the person took a lot of time to edit them and make them look as professional as they do. Now, this is just a disclaimer to those of you who are not into the super edited look of photos. You totally do not have to edit your photos. Even if you're not interested in working with brands, it doesn't matter. Like, take the photo and post it right away. You do not in any way, I'm not telling you have to edit your photos. This is just an extra step I like to take to enhance my photos and make them look a little bit more how I like them to look. It's not everyone's style, not everyone's gonna like it, but this is what I do, and I always get questions about it, so I thought it was time to finally just make a video about it and let you guys know what I do. So now that my rambling is out of the way, let's just jump right into the video. Now, the first thing to address when talking about editing is the programs that I use. So the first one that I use is Photoshop. I have it for school, so I just thought I might as well use it for my photos as well. That's what I use to kind of even out any blemishes, and I also use it to enhance the lights and darks in my photos. And I also use Lightroom. Lightroom is really important to alter the lighting of your photo and balance out the colors a little bit. And when taking photos with your camera, your phone, or whatever you're using, sometimes the colors can get a little washed out and not as true to color and vibrant as you want them to be. So it's definitely important to have Lightroom in order to balance out those colors and make your picture vibrant and stand out. Now, something I want to let you know about Photoshop and Lightroom is that they do cost money. You can get a discount if you're a student at a university if that helps, and I know that there are ways that you can get them for free illegally, but I wouldn't recommend doing, but if you have to, I mean, you do what you gotta do. But I know that there are apps. There's a Lightroom app that I do have, and it works really well, so you don't have to buy Lightroom. You can just use the app on your phone. But Photoshop does cost money. If you can get it for free, cool, but if not, I used to use editing apps. I didn't used to use Photoshop, so I can also do a video on how to edit your photos for free, but might not be as, you might not get the same outcome with the free apps as you would with Photoshop. So I would definitely recommend putting in the money to actually just purchase Photoshop, because in the long run it's going to help you out a lot, and it's going to give your photos that look that you're looking for. Professional look to your photos, a more HD quality. Photoshop is definitely the way to go, and if you can purchase it, I definitely recommend it. It's changed the way that my photos look tremendously. So now I'm just going to open up Photoshop on my computer, and we're going to get into the editing process of my photos. So as you can see, I have my image pulled up on Photoshop now. What a lovely pose. So the first thing that I usually do before I start editing the photo is I crop it to the shape that I want. So what I'm going to do is, usually on Instagram, I usually aim for a more square shape because photos on Instagram are usually square. So I'll just kind of eyeball it and, you know, get this cropped out of there as well. And I'll just go to, I don't know where crop is, so I just do this, and there you go. And now that that's all cropped out, and this is kind of the image that we're going to work with. So the first thing that we're going to do, I don't remember the proper term for it, but basically we're going to make a bunch of layers to bring out the texture of our skin, and I just want to keep the texture of the skin in the photo without keeping all the redness and the bumps of the blemishes and blah 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 that's in my photo. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to right click, it's control click on a Mac, I'm not sure what you're using, but you know, just right click on whatever you're using, and you're going to click duplicate layer. And you can name it if you want, I usually don't. So you're going to duplicate that one. And then I'm going to duplicate it one more time. So right click, and then I'm going to duplicate that layer again. So now you can see we have 3 layers. We have the first layer that's just the regular image. We have a second layer that's just a copy. And a third layer that's just another copy. So we have 3 layers on top of each other of the same image. So the next thing that I'm going to do is we're just going to hide this image. We're going to see this little I button that I'm clicking on. You're going to completely get rid of that. And then next, we're going to work with this second image, so the middle image between these three layers that we've created. So this middle one is what we're going to be working with. So what you want to do is, this is the layer that we're going to blur the skin. So this layer is basically just focusing on the shades and tones within your skin. So what you're going to do is filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and you're just going to blur it enough to where, like, if you look at the skin, it's just like fading the colors nicely together in a gradient. Kind of gives the image a softer look, and that's what you want. You don't want to blur it too much. You just want to blur it, like, you know, eyeball it to about where it's starting to get blurry, but you can still recognize what the photo is. So, you know, about here is good, and then I'm going to click OK. And then that's it for that layer. You don't touch that layer anymore for right now, just leave it alone. And now we're going to click on the top layer, the top of our sandwich of layers, and we're going to click View. So now it's on top of all the layers. This is the top layer. This is the layer that's going to solidify that all of that texture stays in your photo so it can look as natural as possible. And yeah, it's just going to be our texture layer. So you can rename it that if you need to remember that, but just know that the top layer is always a texture layer. So how we're going to hold the texture from this image into this layer is we're going to click Image, Apply Image, and you're going to click on Background Copy. That is our middle of our sandwich layer. You want the middle sandwich layer, the meat of the sandwich, the one that we just blurred. That's the one that we want to apply to this image, because it's going to get rid of all the excess, all the colors, all the stuff that we don't need besides the texture of our image. And for blending, you want it to be on Subtract. And that's just going to take out anything except for the texture. That's what we want in this layer, just texture. Okay, I can't stress that enough. And now you're just going to click OK. And now it kind of looks like a really weird gray image with a little bit of black lines around your face, so that it can look a little normal and we can edit it and see what we're doing. You're going to keep this layer selected. You're going to go from normal, and you're going to click on linear light right there. And now it just looks like a normal image again. Now when we click on the eye of it and we kind of hide that layer, we're back to just the blurry image. But when we click on the eye, the texture is redistributed into the picture. So this layer is holding all of our texture. This second middle layer, our meat of our sandwich of our photos, is our blur layer. So you need both of these layers to work together to edit your image. So once you have this setup kind of going, you have your three layers kind of intact. Once you can get this down, you're set and ready to edit. So each layer you can do different things. So you have to be careful that you're working on the correct layer when you're doing these things. So say we want to kind of even out the skin a little bit. We just want to focus on the middle layer. The top layer full of all the texture will make sure that no matter how much we blur this middle layer, we will still have the texture of our skin to keep that kind of natural look to our image. So what I'm going to do first, this is what I normally do, is I'm going to take my lasso tool right here, click that, and I'm just going to select my forehead region first. You kind of want to work in sections. You don't want to do your whole face at once. I'm going to feather this. I usually keep mine at about a 30 or a 40, you know, whatever your preference is, just so that everything is blended nicely. And when you press the Q key on your keyboard, you can see how the feathering looks. So as you can see, there's kind of a nice blended edge here, so it'll blend nicely into the skin. So I'm just going to lasso this area off, and I'm going to click Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I don't want to blur it too much, but I'm just going to go to about here. You know, this is all just about like eyeballing it and doing what you think is best. And this will just kind of mesh the colors together a little bit better. So about there is good. So now as you can see, the skin looks a lot smoother, but when you zoom in, you can still see the texture. The texture is still preserved. We're just working underneath that textured layer in order to blur while still keeping the integrity of the skin intact. That's what makes your photos look HD and professional looking. It makes your skin look a lot better than it actually is. So as you can see, I have these two sort of pimples on my skin that I don't want. So what I'm going to do is click on my clone stamp tool. It looks like a little stamp. You're going to click on that. And you're going to click Option on your Mac keyboard. And you're going to select an area of skin that you want to cover this with. So I'm going to click an area right next to it. I'm going to click Option and select this area of skin. And I'm just going to click over top of that blemish. And it's gone. And it still looks like skin. It still looks natural. There's not a big blurred area on my skin. It still looks like my real skin. So I'm just going to keep doing that. Okay, so now that my skin is pretty much intact in how I want it to be, I'm going to focus on the lights and the darks of the photo. This is what really makes your photo pop and stand out. Click on the middle layer and then click on this little icon down here, which means create a new layer. And you want this layer to be in between your texture so that your texture stays on top of this layer that we're working on to keep the integrity of the skin texture intact. So this layer, I'm going to work on the darks. I'm just going to rename this. You can double click and click on darks. And with this, we're just going to intensify any dark areas of the photo. It's kind of just like working with, like, you know, the contrast of a photo, but doing it manually. So this technique is called dodging and burning. I'll have a link down below for the tutorial that I learned this from, but I'm just going to kind of explain it in my own words. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our paintbrush tool, being sure that you're still on this darks layer, and you're going to click Option, so it'll bring up this picker tool right here, and you're going to click on an area of the skin that is part of your contour area that we're going to darken and intensify a little bit. And you're going to go down a level, you're going to go a little darker, and you're going to go a little cooler. Because you don't want a warm tone for a shadow. We're intensifying shadows on the face and just in the picture throughout. So shadows are more cool tones. Some people use grays, but on skin you don't want to kind of intensify shadows with gray because you're going to look really ashy and dead. So we're going to take a brush about this big and take the flared out brush. I want my flow to be at like nothing. I want it to be at like 8 is the highest I'll go. You want it to be very light, and we're just going to start drawing along the areas that we want to intensify. I know it looks crazy right now, but we're going to blur it. So we're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. So I'm just going to go like that. Just intensify it a bit. And then there's the difference. There's not much of a difference right now, but when the whole photo is done, you'll really be able to tell. And now for the lights, I'm going to go. For lights, I'm just going to go all the way up to white. Still keep our flow on like 8 or 6 to 8% is pretty good for a flow. And we're gonna go to lighten over any areas. So on my nose, on my brow bone a little. We'll add some highlights. Sometimes on my chin, I'll add a little bit of highlight, very light. Even that's like too heavy for me. I'm just gonna go back with the eraser and erase a little bit of that. So here's before and here's after the little bit of highlights. It makes the image a little bit more interesting to look at. It makes it pop a little bit more, and that's what you want when people look at your image. You want them to be like, one of the most important parts of a beauty image is the eyes. Now like I said, I don't edit the eye makeup. I don't do anything to like change how my blending is. I don't add any colors, nothing. But I do change the brightness. So what I'm gonna do is make another layer here and click overlay on our menu and just kind of click over the center of the eyelid just to bring out some of the colors more. I'm not adding any colors, I'm not doing anything, I'm just kind of brightening it up a little bit and bringing out those colors on the eyelid a little bit more. And now you can see the eyelids are a lot more poppin', so this is the before, this is the after. And as you can see, the eyelids are really standing out right now, but you can't really see my eyes. And I really like the color of my eyes to pop in my photos. So what I'm going to do is put the flow on 100%, like another layer on top of this texture layer that we have, and I'm going to get a little bit smaller of a brush. I know this looks bad, but it's not going to be as intense as it looks. And then you're going to go from normal to overlay and just kind of fade it a little. As you can see, this is the before, this is the after. It just adds some brightness to your eyes that kind of get lost in the shadow sometimes when you're taking your photos. So now as you can see, my lipstick rubbed off a little bit on my Cupid's bow area, and I kind of want to fix that a little bit, so I'm going to go above the texture layer, and I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to option click on the color of the lipstick, and I'm just going to draw over that area very lightly, keeping the flow only at 8% again, and just very lightly go over that so that everything blends and it just gets rid of that look. So now that we're done with everything in Photoshop, I'm going to right click on any layer, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click Merge Visible. That's going to put all of those layers that we created together. So here is the before image. As you can see, you know, I have my pimples in there. It's not as intense, there's not a lot of brightness brought out, it's all just kind of like the same tone. But when you click off of that, here's the after, the skin is evened out, you can see the lights and darks. And it just looks a lot more professional and cleaned up. So now I'm just going to save that image to my computer, and we're going to work on Lightroom. So now in Lightroom, you just kind of want to play around the settings a little bit. I just kind of play around with the highlights and the whites. I usually turn down the highlights a little bit and the exposure a little bit, and I bring up the whites just to kind of make the highlights pop a little bit more, because my highlight's usually like a white color. And then I'll bring up the blacks, maybe a smidge, the shadows, you know, everything I just do in little bits. And of course I bring up the vibrance and the saturation just to be sure that the colors are very vibrant, because that's always good. And then I'm going to bring down the saturation of the yellow, because before it was like this and I felt like the background was a little bit bright. Which, I mean, you can keep, but I don't like a lot of yellow, so I'm just going to tone it down a little tad. Here's the before of our image before we did our tweaking in Lightroom, and here's the after. It's just a little bit more brighter, a little bit more vibrant. So that is everything for this video. I hope this gives you a little bit more insight to how I edit my photos personally, and maybe it can help you learn how to edit your photos a little bit differently. If editing isn't your cup of tea, that's completely fine. You do not have to edit your photos the way I do. Then I kind of wanted to answer those people who are always asking me what I use. Any other videos that you guys want me to do, just let me know down below. So if you did enjoy, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It means the world to me, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!